Hello and welcome to Apologetics 101. Uh, I'm here today making a video concerning, it's like a companion video to a video I recently made. Recently I made a video called Gapped versus Ungapped question mark that was part of the Tompkins Controversy series. This video will not be a part of the Tompkins Controversy series per se. It's more like a companion video to the video that I made with Gap versus Ungap specifically. It's going to include some extra some footage, extra things I had to edit out, or arguments that I wasn't able to put in to the video because of the length of the video. The video Gap versus Ungap is about 4.5 hours long. When I got finished with it originally, it was about over 5 hours long. So, um, or about 6 hours long, something like that. But I had to edit a lot. I think I edited like over an hour's worth of footage out of it. This was one of the things I include this in at the last minute. It was a bonus feature that you're about to watch that was included in it, and but unfortunately, due to the length of the video and having to edit a ton of stuff out of it, because it was going to be a super long video if I didn't, and so I wasn't able to put that in there. But since I already had it recorded, I decided, well, why not just do this as an extra, kind of like a special features type video, just get some extra stuff. There's also some arguments that I wanted to deal with, some things that Erica had said, and stuff like that, and I wanted to deal with that, and also some new stuff, or at least some things there that Glenn had done recently, as far as interacting with me, and I wanted to deal with that a little bit, and so it gives us a little extra treat here. So without further ado, let's dive in. All right, let's show the bonus features, and then I have some further things to talk about following the bonus feature that I edited out of my original video on Gap versus Ungap. So let's continue. All right. So I'm going to do. I have some bonus material that I came up with while I was in the process of putting all this together, and I decided to to do this thing where I'm going to be talking a little bit about what Glenn had said on Erika'S mistake that she made, especially relevant to Carter. I wasn't originally going to do this, but I'm going to do it now, and a little bit on the mistake that Erica actually made, and the problems associated with that. Um, and let's let's do that real quick. I've got some videos to show, but first, or some clips to show, and first I'm gonna show a clip by Glenn Williamson in his video. Um, uh, uh, Ruhif has entered the chat, is where he responds to Carter there. All right, let's continue.
And this mistake has, multiple times, been explained to Rob Carter, both via email and in Erika'S video and in comment section, but in Rob Carter's video, and also in a video by Apologetics 101, and boy is he excitable in that video. Their claim is that Dr. Carter found a devastating programming error in the code that Erika'S husband wrote that calculated the final result. As it turns out, this quote-unquote error only serves to show up Rob's newbie status with Blast, and also demonstrates that he really didn't understand the central point of the paper I submitted back in 2014. So let's listen to Rob, who I think is doing his best to hide how happy he is about finding this. Anyway, let's go.
So why is Gutsuck Gibbon getting 86% identity? It's because she's looking at all the garbage also. 86.6%, that's the average that I got for these 25 things. It's very similar to what she did. And sure enough, she published a her program on GitHub. So I went to the GitHub and I found the program. There's a bunch of files in there. I figured out which one it was, and I'm scanning through this. And I'm looking at it, and it's right there. The program will take the blast results file. It'll open it up, and it will go for every row in the file. Each row is a hit for every single row. I'm looking at it, and it says p-ident sum plus equals parse float of p-ident. In other words, add up all the percent identity values, make a sum of everything in this potentially very long list, and then later on, unweighted equals the percent identity sum divided by the total length. She just averaged potentially millions of nonsense spurious results. That is not what Tompkins did. It's clear from his papers that is not what he did.
So this email exchange.
All right. Before we get into that, look what he said. Okay. Before I get to this part, let me respond a little bit. Carter's completely right. But uh, Glenn doesn't quite understand the position either that me or Carter actually has. It's not an either or situation. Well, let me get this off of picture in a picture here. All right. It's not a either or situation. It is not just the program. It's not just the lack of max HPS one. Glenn doesn't understand what we're saying because he's trying to make it one or the other. Either this is the mistake or that's the mistake. He doesn't seem to understand it's and or both situation. They are both the problem, not just one, both of them. Carter was trying to make this clear in his video. I explicitly made it clear in my previous video, so he definitely misrepresented me. I think he misrepresented Carter too, because Carter actually does voice both the lack of using max HPS one and the program in the video that he made that Glenn is responding to. Glenn doesn't understand this. And I explicitly stated it. I even clarified what I meant. I said, technically speaking, you could have that program there, and if max HPS 1 was done, like you just getting the best alignment, then that program would not be a problem. You could get the best alignment each and every time. I said this in my video. I explicitly said this in my video, okay, on confirming the narrative. I said it specifically in my video, okay? And but I said if you and you could technically have max HPS one not selected, you get all those garbage results and still select the best alignment. It doesn't the blast does not automatically calculate all those percentages up. You have to have a program there that's going to calculate all those results. That was Carter's point. She both had the lack of max HPS 1 selected, which made she got all those results, and she had that program, which calculated all those results. So Glenn is literally misrepresenting both Carter's and definitely my position. I explicitly stated this and explained this in confirming the narrative. I actually said this. So he's actually doesn't understand our arguments. He's showing ignorance of not understanding what we're actually arguing. It is a package deal. It's not just one or the other. Technically, you could have one done, and if the other mistake wasn't done, then that wouldn't be a problem. And vice versa. The mistake is really kind of like a 2-for-1 deal here. It's not just the program. The program itself would not be a problem if she had exercised that parameter. But if she exercised that parameter, but the program wasn't there, again, that wouldn't be a problem because you wouldn't have nothing to calculate all those results. The error, the mistake, is that both of them was the issue. Not just one, both of them. That was the problem. And Glenn didn't understand this. I explained it explicitly in my video. At the time that I voiced, in fact, that's the video that I had was the first. I was the first to actually publicly profess this mistake, even before Carter. Even though Carter's the one who discovered the program, I didn't discover the program. He discovered the program. I discovered what she had done. I realized she somehow had done a global alignment of all the search results, and she was getting all these spurious alignments, and she was doing that. I figured that back in when I was doing control when I was doing controlling the narrative. Yeah. Oh, not controlling the narrative, was it? No, it was back when I did Erika'S self to self analysis unmasked. That's the one. When I did Erika'S self to self analysis unmasked, back then I had said that this was, yeah, I think she was doing this global alignment. She was aligning all the search results, and sure enough, that's what she did. Rob Carter discovered the program. Okay, and then I was the first to publicly profess it. Shortly after I did that video, Rob Carter did his video, which is what Glenn is responding to, and voicing the same thing. And he said the same thing. He talked about the not using the parameter and the program. So he included both of those in there. So I think it misrepresents what he's arguing as well, because he's not arguing one or the other. He's arguing both, just like I did. But in my video, I explicitly stated it. I explained you could have one and it wouldn't be a mistake without the other. You know, but with both of them, it's a mistake. That's where the error actually has, and I don't think Glenn understood that. Maybe after seeing this, I know he's going to be watching this. Maybe he'll have a better understanding of it. Maybe he just didn't watch all of my video on this. I think I mentioned this in confirming the narrative. Yeah, that's why I explicitly explained it. Maybe he just didn't watch all that video. I don't know, but I did actually talk about that, and so Glenn has no reason to not understand that. Um, uh, and, it's been explained to him a bunch of times, but he continues to make the same mistakes just like Erica does. But let's look at what he said there on the screen. I want to talk about that for a second before continuing. All right. He says, yes, Mr. Gibbon, that's Erica's husband, averaged the values of each row. Okay, so he's agreeing that that's what happened. All right. He says it's wrong that Tompkins did average the values of each row. That's false. We've seen that in chapter 3. We dealt with Lasty and Nuckmere, and we saw that that's just not the case. That Tompkins did not do the same thing. For example, if you go through his Lasty and Nuckmere stuff, he does not have a program to average all those results. So he didn't do the same thing. So it is incorrect to say that Tompkins did the same thing. He said on the third one, he said, Dr. Carter thinks this is a bug in the program. I'm not sure. I know I think Rob Carter has said it was a bug in the program or a mistake. Maybe the bug thing was what he originally assumed probably happened. I'm not exactly sure if he called it a bug after the discovery. It might have been that he thought there might have been a bug beforehand. Um, but I don't know if he called it a bug or not. I can't remember. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. It's possible he did. But I would probably have issues with just calling it a bug because that probably would not necessarily be accurate since a bug normally is like a glitch in the program, some kind of mistake that was done in the computer program. But this particular program was intentional to average out all those alignments, average out all those results. So I don't think the word bug would be a good word for it. It's better to just refer to it as a mistake. You could call it a programming mistake because it's a programming mistake when it's combined with the lack of the parameter HSPS1. When that parameter is not utilized, it becomes a mistake as a result. So you could call it a programming mistake, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a bug because that assumes it's some sort of programming glitch, and this would not be a glitch necessarily because obviously it was intentionally put into the script.
Hear from his papers that is not what he did.
So this email exchange took place before Rob's recent video, but after Brian from Apologetics 101 released his video, basically front-running Rob's quote-unquote discovery about taking the average for each row in the output file. And I was genuinely
Is he talking about my discovery or talking about Rob Carter's discovery? But either one of them would be a discovery, so there's no need for quotations because it would be a discovery. Now, Rob Carter's discovering of the program, I would say that Erica probably already knew about it. I would say that her husband probably already knew about it since he did the programming. But um, it's discovered because it's a discovery because nobody else knew about it. Nobody else was aware of it until it was made public knowledge.
confused. Like, did Carter have a brain explosion? Did Brian completely balls up what Rob told him? I didn't know. So I made the subject line of the email, "I am confused." Me. I'm at 1 hour and 3 minutes in Brian's video where he is showing an excerpt of what you emailed to him. She, meaning Erica takes the sum of all the pidents and divides by the number of rows. Boom! That's the mistake she admits to. That is a massive oversight. And then I respond, the mistake was that she was using a newer version of Blast that had max HSPs, while Jeff was using an older version which didn't. So when she ran Jeff's command line parameters, copy-pasted from 2013, on a newer version of Blast, then it returned multiple hits instead of just the top one. If you think you're only getting the top hit, then it's not a programming error to sum them all up and divide by the number of rows. The error is that you're getting more than the top hit.
Okay, for start with that's actually false. You could actually still have well, it will still be an error. I don't know if you call it a programming error at that point, but because his whole thing here is that you couldn't call it a programming error since she did not know about it beforehand. Is that true? No. How do I know that? Because she mentions it in my her response to my Tompkins interview. I've got the clip. So this is actually false, but I'll show you the clip first, and you'll see for yourself.
Okay, so it takes a little longer to run Tompkins' method because he doesn't have a very critical parameter in there. And while that's running, I'm going to show you what that parameter is using Excel here. So remember that was good that returned 100% similarity in max target sequence 1 here. What we did is we had this little parameter here, max HSPS1, right? Max HSPS1. Tompkins' 2013 methods, they don't have that. And my understanding of how Blast works is that's what's making sure that we're only returning like the best matches instead of like any willy-nilly partial 10 base pair match. And that's what drags his percent similarity down, despite the fact that he's using ungapped, or that's what pulls the similarity down further with ungapped, even when you're comparing something to itself. So the ungapped is the problem. The fact that he's missing this, I guess, critical parameter here makes the problem worse. Really, it's mostly ungapped.
Simply put, Erica actually knew what the parameter did ahead of time. Well, both Erica and Glenn still was under the impression, some reason they think that Blast recalculates the whole result. I don't know why or at least they argue it in such a way that makes it sound that way. But in no way does Blast actually calculate it. You have to put a program in there to make it happen that way. Erica had a program in there that did that way. Now, it would be wrong, absolutely wrong, to say that Erica did not know that all those results were being calculated. She knew it gave you all the results if you didn't use the parameter. She just thought that Tompkins didn't use the parameter. So she didn't use the parameter with Tompkins' method because that's what she thought Tompkins did. But she knew what it did. And so that means that when the program came in there, they knew what it would do. It is wrong to say that she did not know. she knew, and it was on video. And the reason why I remembered that when I saw that part in there, this is the whole reason why I decided to do this bonus section, is that I saw when I saw that part of it, I was going through some of Glenn's material, and I saw that I was like, wait a minute, didn't she? Wasn't there some place where she did? Because see, I remember playing that very same clip in in a previous. I think it was actually in confirming the narrative. If I'm not mistaken, I think I played that clip in there where she talks about Max HSPS1. So that's why I remembered it from, and then I tracked it down to the original clip or the original video that where she responded to my Tompkins interview. So, Glenn, that's false. She did know about it. So, according to your own definition of what a programming error is, it would be a programming error because she was already aware that lack of max HPS1 would give you all of the results. Yeah, so Erica mistake was both the program and not using max HPS1. Tompkins didn't do this. Okay, for one, with Nightmare, it's different than Blast, uh, but it's it's more Nightmare is more designed to try to look for unique areas of the genome, more exact one-to-one matches. And so what happens is that you wind up, if you do the repeats, then you have more inexact matches, and so you end up getting more search results as a result. And so that's what you would end up doing. But you still could take the best alignment either way. So it's not like it avoids the best alignment. Tompkins had no program, none, in his last Z or his Nutmere script, which calculates all the search results. None of them do. They're a very short amount, but there's nothing in his scripts that actually calculates all the results like that. And in order to be the same mistake that Erica made, he would need both that parameter, which of course that parameter is not found in Blast, or excuse me, that parameter is not found in Nutmere nor Last Z. Um, Last Z includes all the alignment because it's a global alignment and so forth. So Tompkins did not do that. So yeah, I would definitely disagree with Glenn. I hope Glenn maybe can understand where the problem is, that it's not an either or situation. It's not a simply a mistake with the program by itself. And Carter mentions both the parameter and the program, and her lack of that particular parameter being set and the program there as the mistake, and it calculates all the results. Tompkins did not do that. He did not have that anywhere in this program. That includes his Nutmere and Lassie stuff. So it would be incorrect to claim that Tompkins did that. Before I go, I want to do one more, talk about one more thing. Um, Erica, in her video, now the original reason why I focused on Glenn Williamson's arguments is because for the most part, Erica just shadowed Glenn, except in portions where she kind of misrepresented his own argument. But for the most part, she just shadowed Glenn. And since Glenn was her primary source, I decided to respond directly to Glenn Williamson on his arguments and fundamental arguments and that sort of thing. Now, Erica does make one particular argument that's separate from the ones that Glenn makes. She makes the same mistake that Dapper Dinosaur does and says that you can't do whole genomic comparisons with ungapped parameter unless, of course, you're doing the protein coding regions. The reason why she says protein coding regions, I think, is because the protein coding regions rarely has indels in them, for the most part. It's not impossible to have an indel in a protein coded region, it just doesn't happen very often. And so she's arguing essentially that unless you can be able to include gaps in there, include every single indel, you cannot do a whole genomic comparison. This is false. As Carter flagged in his one of his response videos, this has become an urban myth at this point. The claim was that that you cannot do whole genomic comparisons assumes you have to do a letter by letter comparison of the entire genome to do whole genomic comparisons. This is false. You can actually do genetic comparisons between two different organisms using ungapped parameter. Um, if you had to do a letter by letter comparison between two different organisms in order to do whole genomic comparisons, then nobody could be able to do whole genomic comparisons. We only got the entire human genome summer of last year. No one's done anything major with it yet. Um, and we have we only got and we haven't even got a complete chimp sequence yet. It's coming. It's almost here. Um, but it's nearing completion, but it ain't there yet. And so anybody doing genomic comparisons before these sequences were done, could never do them. Could never do them. If you were trying to do a letter by letter comparison of the entire genome, to do a whole genomic comparison, then nobody could ever do them. Plus, how does geneticists normally do genetic comparisons? They usually use a robust sample of genetic information and then compare it to a genome. So they don't use an entire genome and compare it to an entire genome. So they don't do that. So you can actually do a whole genomic comparison without necessarily have including the indels. So that is completely false. You can actually find peer-reviewed papers where people do genetic studies all the time using ungapped parameter. It is completely false to sit there and argue differently. And that's one thing that Erica did argue. The reason why I didn't bring it that much up actually didn't bring it up at all in the original video that I did on ungapped parameter, the reason I didn't do that was because Glenn is not specifically arguing that. He said multiple times since Carter's original response video that he's not arguing simply that ungapped parameter is bad and gapped is good and that sort of thing. So he's not actually arguing that you can't do a genetic study. In fact, he actually said in his videos recently that you can do genetic studies using ungapped parameter. It's just he just thinks that Tompkins had scaled the query against the length of the query, and Tompkins didn't do that. That's not what Tompkins did. But so he misrepresented Tompkins' study, but he assumed that he did that, and that combined with the ungapped parameter, he argued was not good. But except the fact that Tompkins didn't actually do that, and the fact that it's not just ungapped parameter, it's gapped even. Now ungapped would be worse than gapped, but it would still be, relatively speaking, but it would still be a problem either way if you scale against the length of the query with gapped as you would be ungapped. So it wouldn't matter either way. Um, but it's the problem though there wasn't that that he didn't have a point. The problem was is that he misrepresented Tompkins's work, and that's not at all what uh, Dr. Jeffrey Tompkins did. He did not calculate it based on the length of the query. He did not scale against the length of the query. He didn't divide by the query length. He didn't do any of those things. That is incorrect. It's incorrect for Erica to say he averaged up all those query lengths and then took it as a percentage of the query lengths in her video. That's not what he did either. None of that stuff is what Tompkins actually did. And this also poses an interesting issue because that would also mean that everything in Erica's new experiments, redone experiments, would also be bogus. The results would be bogus because she actually divided by the query length. She scaled in the length of the query length because she assumes that that Tompkins had this weird calculation method on his papers and his studies. That's not how Tompkins did it, but she assumed that he did it this way because she's using Glenn as her primary source on this. So any experiments that she did from 2011 study of Tompkins all the way to 2016 study would be bogus result because she assumes that calculation method of scaling the results. So her experimental results is once again bogus because she misrepresented Tompkins's work and therefore did not replicate Tompkins's method correctly. And this would also mean that the claim that she had replicated Tompkins' method and compared it to things of the same kind would also be false. She did not, because she did not correctly replicate the method. Now, of course, there were lots of other mistakes she made in trying to replicate Tompkins' method. And some she repeated from original video, original responses, things like that, like including accessory sequences and things like that. But she did not replicate Tompkins' method correctly. We've been right from the day one on that, even when she was defending it dogmatically. But she did not replicate Tompkins' method correctly at all. As far as Erika'S error that she made, it's a package deal. It's both the program and the lack of max HPS1. No, Glenn Tompkins did not do that. He did not do that with his Nightmare. He did not do that with Last C. Max Match is not the same as the lack of Max HPS1. They're actually very different. Nightmare and Blast are worlds apart in terms of how different they are. They don't compare things in the same way, and so they're extremely different algorithms, and especially in the way they compare things. Um, so this is incorrect at every level. So no, Tompkins did not do the same thing as Erica. Tompkins would have known better and did know better, and he did not do that. Erica, on the other hand, did do that in her results, and it cost her the controversy. It's sad, but it's true. Essentially, nobody trusts Erica. She doesn't know what she's doing. I'm not saying that all this to insult her or nothing. Um, she's clearly way out of her field. She admits that's the case. You know, she's way outside of her field on this. And but in the process of making all of these really bad mistakes, she is bashing another man's reputation in trying to do that. The funny thing is she did not succeed. You know, one of the things that I've heard in some of the evolutionary critics online was they were applauding Erica's original videos, saying that a YouTuber with a mic and a webcam could still defeat a young Earth creation scientist, and that is false. Obviously, she did not. Her original videos were obviously bogus, as she herself admitted. Um, but interesting enough, I would say the opposite is true. That a guy with a mic and a webcam has disproven a popular evolutionist online. That is not what Tompkins did. She got everything wrong, and so did Glenn. And so this becomes very clear. I hope y'all watch my video, Gap versus Ungap, and I plan on making another video called Weighted versus Unweighted. That's going to be another cool video in the series. And then following that, I will cap the series off with a final video. Alright, thank you for watching, and remember, stay in the know.